I've been experimenting again, and I've come up with something that I think is going to be genuinely really interesting, especially for things like hidden bases, and that's what we're going to be working with today, and this is going to be where we're constructing it. Yeah, I mean, you guys know me, I kind of like dirt huts, and this seemed like the perfect place for it. I'm assuming that most of you aren't convinced at this point in time, but trust me, there is method to my green top madness. I want this place to look as abandoned as possible. I want it to look like a base that's been played in for maybe 10 or 15 minutes and then left alone, so any player that's walking past will just assume that there's nothing special on the inside of here. And even if they do come in, maybe they find some half-decent resources, but they're not going to think that there's a multi-story gold mine underneath it. Now I know what you're thinking, for a mini hidden base, this looks like quite a big area. I would have to agree with you here, but I've cleared out this space just in case we need it for some of the redstone. I don't think we're going to use all of it, at least I hope. I've kind of committed to the title now. I mean, that's what this video is called in my head. To change it would completely throw me off. So this here is stage 1. This is the flying machine, which is going to be taking us between each one of our levels in our base. And this is where things get interesting, because I wanted to create a system where we essentially dock our flying machine. So we drop it down to a level, it then stops at that level, we can then select whether we want to go back up to the surface or go down to the next level. And then when we reach down to there, we can either select if we want to go down to the next level or pop up to the level above, and so on and so forth. Essentially creating a kind of moving floor that allows us to go up through the different areas of our base. I think it's really interesting. And after a lot of hard work this morning, this is the circuit that I've come up with. This side stops the flying machine, and this side sends it off. So if we hit this button right here, it's difficult to know which side is up or down, but I believe that is down. That will send it down to the bottom here, and then if we shoot it back upwards, you can see it'll get stopped by our machine, and then when we hit this button, it will send it upwards. How cool is that? Now this little circuit right here has been the bane of my life for probably about 4 hours today. It's me trying my best to put both of the stations into one side, as opposed to having 2 stations. This is the best I could do. It's bulky, it's horrible, and you still need immovable objects on the other side, which kind of renders it a little bit pointless. So, you know what? I think there's only really one thing for it. I mean, that is just, it's got to go. Anyway, back over to the good double-sided design now. There'll be more info on that towards the end of the video. So for those of you who are interested in constructing something like that for yourselves, then that should be good for you. Anyway, I'm just in the process of creating our first little dock. I'm thinking we have 3 layers to this little mini, in inverted commas, base here. And I say that because, well, this block here represents the bottom of floor number 2. So we have a whole... We're actually going to need more space than I expected. Anyway, let's see if our little system is actually working. So if we hit this button right here, this should send it up to the surface. So that is now flush with the floor of our little dirt hut. Obviously, you know, it's not very hidden because of the surrounding glass, but eventually that will be completely concealed. And then if we flick this lever right here, that should activate the observers and actually drop it down, taking us through into the beginnings of our base. I like this already. So I would say this first level should be entirely dedicated to storage. So I guess we can fill up both of these walls with chests, and then we can have this little area here reserved for special things. And those special things are an enchanting table and an anvil, and then a bunch of bookshelves. To be honest with you, it doesn't really fit in with the storage system theme, but it looks really cool. And you know, I gotta say, I actually think this entire floor looks really cool. I'm super happy with it. I love the spruce wood style. I just think it looks really nice and cozy, and I love the fact that when we hit one of these buttons right here, we then leave the floor behind and we return back up to the surface and everything is fully concealed, but knowing that I can activate it, drop down below, and then drop down below again, it's cool. But actually, I've brought up a good point there, because I've realized now there's no way for me to get back down into the base. I haven't actually hooked up any form of activation system. So what we thinking here? We thinking redstone torch keys, we thinking items. I don't know. Let's keep it simple, shall we? Just a button that you place on the edge of the crafting bench, and that will activate everything. I will never get bored of that. But obviously, despite how satisfying that is, it's nothing too special. What should be special is the fact that we are able... Well, that hasn't exactly gone to plan, has it? 20 minutes of head scratching later, I've found the culprit, so now we can actually go down to the next level, which, as I say... Oh, that is cool, isn't it? That is more than cool. And then if we hit this button, we make our way up to the previous layer. I like this a lot. I also like lanterns a lot. I genuinely have never used these before. This is my first time placing them, and they look pretty cool. Anyway, this layer here is going to be dedicated to my villagers. So this is going to be a small little villager trading hall. I wonder what we're going to get. Nothing exciting. Okay, I'll run through some. That's a little bit more like it if you're asking me. Efficiency 5, and then we also have Depth Strider 3 over here, both of them locked in. I wouldn't mind having these villagers myself on the Hermitcraft server. Over in this little space here, I thought it would be a good idea to add in storage for paper, sugarcane, books, and emeralds, because we're going to be getting plenty of those from the villagers. And I would say that is this space completed. I mean, I'm going to add just some trapdoors on top of those crafting benches, because I think it looks a little bit better. And if we hit this button right here, we should then drop down towards the final layer. There we go. Okay, so this is where it's going to be. As you can see, we have got quite a lot of height to this thing. But there is a slight issue. I was originally going to put a bed down on this layer, but then I realised if I respawn, I'm then stuck down at the bottom here. Not great. But then I had an idea. Inspired by the puppy that is currently gnawing my feet, I thought I would get myself some pets. So we've got Kubo, that's my puppy, and then we also have Benji, which is my old cat that is currently at my mum's house, but still technically my cat. So Benji, meet Kubo. They've never actually met in real life, and I'm kind of concerned. More for Kubo. Benji is vicious. Correct me if I'm wrong here. Note blocks haven't always been movable, right? What? That was the sound of my brain just not really knowing what to do with this information. Is that useful? I feel like that could be useful. It's also confusing because it seems to be storing the information of the note block across movements, which means that that's a movable tile entity, no? Which, for anyone who's confused as to why I'm excited about this, is because chests and furnaces and things are tile entities, and it's always been Minecraft's position that you can't move tile entities. Anyway, my multi-story hidden base has now been fully completed, and we can travel between each layer just fine. So I hit the button right there, we go up to the storage room. I realize now that actually I need to do some villager trading, so let's drop down quickly down there. And now I've just realized that I haven't actually fed my cat, so we need to go down once again. I'm a fan of this. I'm a huge fan of this. It's so satisfying. And of course, once we're done in here, all we have to do is hit this button, and there we go. Everything is flush with the floor. We can just, you know, pop outside. No one would suspect that this is lying underneath. Pretty spectacular, if you're asking me. I'm jumped to bits with this one. Now let's take a look at the actual multi-floor system so that you can see how to build it. So I'm going to start things off by building up our flying machine, which is a fairly simple process. We just need to create a shape a little bit like this one. Then we need to place a sticky piston facing downwards with a slime block right there. And then we need an observer here and an observer here. That is all of the blocks for the flying machine. Then for the modules, we just need to make sure that we have both of these blocks right here, because these are the blocks that are actually going to be stopped by the redstone system. Now to build up our stopper module, all we have to do is place in an observer, and then we need to place a regular piston here, a regular piston right here, and then we also need to place another regular piston just down underneath like this. So that observer right there is going to be detecting this block, and then these pistons are going to be trapping that block in place, essentially halting our flying machine. So if we place in a sticky piston right here, then we're going to have the redstone run down like this. We're going to have a repeater running across into a block with redstone dust on top. Then we're going to have 2 blocks of glass, redstone, a repeater set to 3 ticks. That's going to be running into that block right there. And that is going to be what is stopping our flying machine. Launching our flying machine is going to be even easier. All we need to do is place a couple of immovable objects there, then a pair of buttons. We're going to have a block underneath this button here with redstone dust on top, and then before we do anything, we need to make sure that we lock our flying machine in place using some movable objects, because otherwise it's going to travel off and it's going to be very frustrating. So we just need a piece of redstone dust and then a hopper right here, some redstone dust there, and then we're going to need a trapped chest like that. And then underneath this button here, we're going to need a sticky piston running down like that, an observer. that's going to be then running into a block, and then we're going to have a hopper right here, and that's going to be running into that observer there. So now we can remove all of our immovable objects, and it should now be ready to go. Nervously does a bunch of system checks and realizes that he has forgotten a very essential immovable object underneath those hoppers there. If you forget that, everything breaks. But with that in place, we should be good to go. So if we hit this button on the left, it will begin to travel upwards. That all seems to be functioning well. Then if we send it back down to the system, it should all be stopped properly. That looks like it works. And then if we hit this button, it goes downwards to the next layer. That is looking pretty good to me. So if we send this back up, it should also be caught as well. Fingers crossed. Nice. So there we go. That is how you make these little docking stations for your flying machines. But anyway, I think that's all I've got time for today. I hope that you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya. Or not really. I mean, you know, I'm still here. This is kind of like this outro is always like an awkward goodbye, where you say goodbye to someone, but then you're going in the same direction. So then you're like, oh yeah, see you later. And then you're walking alongside them. And it's like, ah, okay, we've got to continue this conversation until I can say goodbye.
One.